They say Lwów is a city you fall in love with at first sight. For me, a 10-year-old girl from Kielce, Lwów was like a giant stone jewelry box filled with treasures. It was the scent of my aunt's perfume, the taste of Weddell chocolate bought in the market square, and the click-clack of high heels on the Academica street. When my mother was leaving for Kielce in mid-August, she cried. I didn't understand why. I was supposed to be back in only 2 weeks. Be good for Grandma, Helenka, she had said, straightening my collar. Paula, my younger sister, was so jealous that she refused to even wave goodbye at first. She also wanted to stay, but she was going to start school this year, so they had to take care of some formalities. If I had known, if I had only known, I would have begged Mom to let me return with them. That August was sticky with sun. Lwów pulsed with life, but beneath the layers of laughter and cafe music, something dense was lurking. The adults were whispering. My uncle would close the study doors, and from behind them came only the static of the radio and nervous pacing. I felt safe in those high-ceilinged cool rooms full of plush furniture and porcelain figurines. But that safety was as fragile as the porcelain itself. We lived in Pohulanka. The 1st of September didn't arrive here with a bang. It arrived with disbelief. I remember Aunt Nadia standing by the window with a cup of coffee that had gone cold in her hands. The radio stopped playing music and started barking orders. War? I asked, more curious than terrified. I knew the word from history textbooks. War was ulans, sabers, and paintings by Matejko. I didn't know that war was dust that grinds between your teeth and fear that squeezes your stomach so tight you can't swallow your breakfast. Your parents will come for you, darling, Granny assured me, but her hands trembled as she smoothed my hair. Henrik is surely on his way. I waited. Every day I sat on the wide windowsill in the kitchen, which offered a view of the road leading out of the city. I scanned the street for my father's familiar silhouette. I daydreamed about seeing our battered old suitcase, but no one came. The post office stopped working. The telephones were silent, or they connected you to a void. Kielce, my home, my parents, my sister. Suddenly they felt as distant as if they were on another planet. I was cut off, trapped in a gilded cage with family who loved me, but who were not my home. I was a guest who had stayed too long, while the world outside began to burn. Lwów, the fortress of the East, was supposed to be safe, but war has long arms. The first bombs fell on the railway station. I remember that day. The noise was different from a thunderstorm. It was dry, short, and unnatural. The earth shuddered, and Grandma's favorite vase danced off the sideboard, shattering into 1,000 pieces. She didn't even look at it. To the basement! Quickly! Uncle shouted. The basement of the tenement house smelled of coal, damp earth, and sour cabbage. We sat there, huddled with the neighbors. The shoemaker's wife in her coat, sweating despite the heat, clutching her cat. The tailor's children were crying softly in the corner. And me. I sat on a wooden crate, squeezing a small rag doll I had brought from home. It was my only link to Kielce. In the darkness, by the light of a single candle, I imagined what Mom and Dad were doing. Were they in a basement too? Was Paula scared? Were they okay? The worst part was not knowing. The radio silence from Kielce was louder than the explosions outside. I felt guilty that I was here, where there was still water in the taps and food on the table, while I didn't know what was happening to them. That ignorance was torture. Hours turned into days. The city changed before my eyes. Lwów, beautiful and proud, began to bleed. Windows were boarded up. In the squares where children had played tag just days ago, men were digging anti-aircraft trenches. The Wedel cakes disappeared. Lines for bread appeared. My suitcase still stood by the door. Every morning I checked it. Did I have clean clothes? My book? The photograph of my parents? I believed that at any moment the door would fly open and Dad would rush in, breathless and covered in soot, saying, "Pack up, Helena, we're going back." But the door remained shut. One evening, as we sat eating potatoes with lard, because there was no meat left, Uncle Adam brought news from the city. He was pale. His hands, usually the steady hands of a bureaucrat, were shaking so badly he couldn't hold his fork. "The Germans are outside the city," he whispered. "But that's not all. From the east, the Soviets are coming." I didn't understand politics. I didn't know what the Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact was. But I saw the fear in the adults' eyes. It was a different fear than the one caused by bombs. This was the fear of the end of the world as they knew it. Grandma began to pray aloud, and Aunt Nadia simply left the room and started to weep. I remained at the table. I looked at my plate, and suddenly I understood. I understood with that terrifying, crystal clear clarity that children sometimes have. I wasn't going home for the start of the school year. I wasn't going to see Mom next week. Maybe I wouldn't see them at all. I didn't cry that night. I walked over to my suitcase, which had been standing in the hallway like a faithful dog waiting for a walk. I opened it. I took out my dresses, which still smelled of home in kilts, of the lavender from my mother's wardrobe. I took them out and hung them in the massive oak wardrobe in the guest room. That was the moment I stopped being a tourist. I stopped being a child during a summer vacation. I became a refugee in my own country, an orphan of circumstance even though my parents were alive. Or at least I truly believed in it. I shoved the empty suitcase under the bed. I pushed it deep, right into the corner where the dust bunnies gathered. I felt like I was hiding my childhood there. I knew that Lwów, this strange yet familiar city, was now both my prison and my shelter. The next morning, I looked out the window. There were no policemen on the street anymore. The sky was the color of lead. A long winter was beginning, even though the calendar still said September. I was Helena, a girl with green eyes who had lost her way home. And I had to learn to live in a new place when history had just decided to write its bloodiest chapter.